again chose to come back to Pune for a couple of days. And yesterday Maharaj gave a wonderful reading session at Shri Radha Kunjberi temple, and today we have Maharaj here at NVCC. So Maharaj joined the movement way back in 1969 when he got introduced to Srila Prabhupada during his college days. When he met Prabhupada first time, Prabhupada asked him, "Do you want to serve God or do you want to become God?" And that was a very, you know, Maharaj says that I felt Prabhupada could see through me and then go to my house and go to the bathroom, where on the glass I have written, "I am God." So he felt that Prabhupada could see all that. And then he was so inspired, he dedicated his life in the service of Srila Prabhupada in Boston. And when Prabhupada came to India in August of 1970, then Prabhupada asked that the second best devotee from the entire yatra in US, there were 14 temples at that time, be sent to India to lead the Indian yatra. So then Maharaj was the chosen one from Boston, and then Maharaj came. The first batch of devotees who ever came to India with Srila Prabhupada, when there was nothing, there was no temple, there was no land, no program was established, and then Srila Prabhupada came, stayed in Mumbai, and then traveled to different places, which are all mentioned in Maharaj's book, Traveling with Srila Prabhupada. So Maharaj will be reading from that book. And those were very special days because there was hardly any facility, but there was very intense and very intimate association with Srila Prabhupada, which are being very beautifully narrated by Maharaj in his upcoming book. And the very wonderful days. And then in 1971 was the year when the land started coming, temples started, kind of getting started to construct. So those memories are all there. And then, of course, the Juhu temple story, which Maharaj written in the book, "I Will Build Your Temple," the Juhu story, that is there. So Maharaj has been very instrumental, I would say, pioneering in establishing ISKCON in India, right from Kolkata in 1970, and then in 71 in the Pandal program in Mumbai. Maharaj played a very vital role in organizing it, managing it. And then Maharaj was sent to Chennai, where he met many prominent people, and then finally arranged a Pandal program for Srila Prabhupada over there. Then for some days at Hyderabad. Then he was also in Delhi with Gurudas Prabhu for starting preaching over there. So we find that by Prabhupada's mercy, Maharaj has been instrumental in establishing Krishna consciousness in all the metropolitan cities of India in those days. This is way back in 1971-72. Maharaj has been traveling to all these places, making life members, inspiring people to take to Krishna consciousness, inviting Srila Prabhupada to meet with these dignitaries. So he played a very vital role in the Indian Yatra. And then, of course, as the Juhu land came to ISKCON, and then that whole, what you read in the book, how it came and how things happened. Then he was based at Mumbai, and Prabhupada wrote many, many letters to Maharaj, guiding him in how to manage the temple, how to cultivate the life members, how to inspire people, and how to keep the devotees together. So very elaborate directions, both in letters and in person. And Maharaj has interacted with Srila Prabhupada on several occasions, asking very vital questions. And we know about that incident in Vrindavan when Prabhupada told ISKCON will go forward by organization intelligence. So there are many such incidences which are milestone in our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's mood and how this mission will go ahead. So we have been very fortunate, and we have a special fortune because Maharaj was the one who pioneered ISKCON's progress at Pune also. So we are among those cities where Maharaj pioneered here. Maharaj was there in the first group of devotees who came with Srila Prabhupada when Mr. Malhotra has invited them. And later on, Maharaj continued to cultivate Mr. Malhotra because in Pune there was no temple. The temple was in Juhu, so they used to come there, Maharaj used to meet them. And in 1944, the property at camp was taken on rent, and there was the inaugural function which was held in the Nehru Memorial Hall, for which there was an article published in BTG, which is still there in 1984. And then Maharaj was coming to Pune and organizing the activities here. And later on, Maharaj continued to come for Pune Yatra, which we used to have in January, and then give the association. Maharaj has visited Pune several times, inspired the devotees, offered initiations, and blessed all of us. And then in later years, Maharaj then shifted back to US. He has been based in US more. And then the instruction which Srila Prabhupada gave the very early days about writing. So then Maharaj, after finishing all his duties, more of management kind, Maharaj took to writing, and he has written various wonderful, very inspiring, heart-touching books, like Many Moons, which is about the departed Vaishnavas and their qualities, and a book about preparation for death, and then Watering the Seed, and then a recent one, I'll build your temple, the Jewish story. Very elaborate, and I mean, it's just amazing how Maharaj could remember all this, what happened 50 years back. It's such detail with all names and how it was, which house they visited, what the host said, what was there in the prasadam menu. It's like amazing. And now this Maharaj working on his upcoming book, Traveling with Srila Prabhupada in 1970. And Maharaj will be reading from that book. So we are extremely fortunate to have Association of Maharaj here at Pune in this year when we are completing the 10th anniversary of Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Temple. So this is a great fortune bestowed upon us by the Lord. So let us very heartily welcome and express our gratitude to Maharaj by once loudly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj ki, Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. I will begin by singing the Mangala Charana prayers and leading a short kirtan. And then I will read from my forthcoming book about traveling with Srila Prabhupada to Madras. Just one aside about Pune. Rajneesh had his ashram here, and one of the wives of one of our life members met Srila Prabhupada and told him that her husband was going to Pune to have sex with the ladies at Rajneesh's ashram. And she was very upset. And Srila Prabhupada replied, "Don't worry, I will go to Pune and drive him out." And it happened, he did have to leave. Then they wanted to sell us his ashram. So I looked at it, but it didn't seem, it was very contaminated by all the sinful activities, and it just didn't seem. And now we have this place, which is much better. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Sutta Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Samstapakacharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Stotra Sutasi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hariro. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, we are reading from my forthcoming book about traveling with Srila Prabhupada in India. And now I will read chapter 12, Madras, November 27th, 1971 to February 24th, 1972. In November, just after the Delhi Panda program, and on the eve of Srila Prabhupada's first tour of Vrindavan with his disciples, Achyutananda, Bhavananda, and I volunteered to go to Madras to arrange a preaching program for Prabhupada there. When Achyutananda informed Prabhupada of the plan, Prabhupada asked, "Oh, you are not going to Vrindavan with us?" In fact, none of us could imagine missing being in Vrindavan with him. But Achyutananda replied, "ISKCON is Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, my Guru Maharaj used to think like that." Then I asked Srila Prabhupada, "But which do you want us to do? What is the better service?" And Prabhupada replied, "I want you to put on a pandal in Madras. That would be more pleasing." I met many so-called intellectuals in Madras who tended toward impersonalism. They thought, "Oh, how silly. You are saying that Krishna is supreme, and someone else is saying Shiva is supreme." There are many Shaivites in Madras who believed that Shiva was supreme. These impersonalists considered themselves to be more intelligent than the naive sentimentalists who worship particular deities, and they considered us to be naive sentimentalists because we worshipped Krishna, chanted Krishna's name, and preached Krishna's supremacy. As one of the first ISKCON devotees to visit Madras, I was quite a sensation, an American Vaishnav. Most people there had never seen a Western sadhu. And several friends, wanting to help, suggested that I meet a Mr. Ramakrishna, who they said was pious and religious and would be happy to hear of our activities. So I met Mr. Ramakrishna, and he turned out to be one of those people who thought that Shiva was supreme. And before long, we came to verbal blows. He had a volatile nature and turned red in the face and raised his voice in anger. So the meeting ended quite abruptly. Still, as I continued preaching, people kept telling me, "You have to meet Mr. Ramakrishna. He is a very pious man. He is a very religious man." And I imagine the people were telling him, "Oh, you should meet this Hare Krishna devotee. He is very nice. They are doing excellent work." After a few weeks, I thought, maybe I should give it another try. This time I'll be more careful. When I phoned Mr. Ramakrishna, he immediately agreed to meet me, confirming my thought that people were speaking favorably about us to him. It was probably embarrassing for him that we had disagreed so vehemently. So we met, and this time I tried to restrain myself, and he tried to restrain himself. But eventually, we came to the same point of contention. Who was supreme? Krishna, Vishnu, or Shiva? Again, the argument escalated, but neither of us wanted it to end the same way as it had the last time. Then I got an inspiration. In 2 weeks, my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is coming to Madras, I said. So instead of us arguing, why don't I invite you to meet him, and you can discuss with him directly? Mr. Ramakrishna liked the idea. It was a way out for both of us. And ultimately, what could be better for him than to meet a pure devotee of Krishna? When Mr. Ramakrishna eventually met Srila Prabhupada, he told him about our dispute. He said, "I met your disciple Giriraj, and I argued that Shiva is supreme, and he argued that Krishna is supreme. So who is supreme?" Prabhupada took a different approach. He didn't enter the polemics about who was supreme. Rather, he said, there are 2 words in Sanskrit, puja and bhakti. In puja, one worships the deity to get some material benefit. And in bhakti, one worships only to give pleasure to the deity, without expectation of personal return. Generally, the worshippers of Shiva engage in puja. They worship to get some material benefit. Whereas in bhakti, we worship Krishna for the sake of Krishna's pleasure. just to please him. Mr. Ramakrishna asked, "Is it not possible to worship Shiva in the mood of bhakti?" Prabhupada replied, "It is possible, but it would be exceptional. For example, generally people go to a liquor shop to buy liquor. Now, one could go for another purpose, but that would be an exception. Generally, people go to buy liquor." Srila Prabhupada did not enter into the controversy over who was supreme. Rather, he explained the different moods in the worship of different deities. And Mr. Ramakrishna was satisfied with the answer. On December 12th, we had an exuberant Nagar Sankirtan, which was reported in the Hindu newspaper, along with an introduction to the Krishna consciousness movement. Quote, "Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare." This divine chant is by no means new to the people of India, nor is the practice of group singing of devotional hymns in streets and other public places strange to them. But the bhajan that the huge holiday crowd in Triplicane Beach witnessed last Sunday evening was something uncommon. A group of 4 saffron-robed sadhus chanted God's name and sang Sanskrit verses in his praise. They had all the marks that go with a Hindu sadhu: vertical, sandal-colored streaks on the forehead, a small tuft of hair, bead garlands, and traditional clothes. But a closer look and a little conversation with them were enough to reveal that at least 3 of them were American. The 4th hailed from South India. Impelled by curiosity, crowds collected to watch the bhajan, and soon hundreds among the onlookers themselves joined the choir, inspired by the fervor with which the sadhus chanted divine names and sang devotional hymns, clanging their cymbals to match the tune. Founded in 1966 in the United States, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness now has about 70 centers spread over a number of countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Australia, and Africa, and India accounted for 5 of them. Nearly 5,000 priests, such as the 4 that have arrived in Madras, are engaged in propagating Krishna consciousness among the people. What is Krishna consciousness? It is the process of becoming aware that all the benefits one enjoys, in fact, life itself, are gifts of Krishna, and living accordingly. And it was a very extensive article. Then there was a section about the main objects of ISKCON. There was a section about New Vrindavan. And then yeah, a little discussion of Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara. A very good article. So, although our main program for distributing books in India was life membership, I also went to bookstores. Srila Prabhupada was so intent on his books being distributed that he would write me letters suggesting specific stores to approach. One big bookstore that I visited periodically and supplied with books, Higginbotham's Booksellers on Mount Road, the main street of Madras, placed a sizable order, about 60 large books. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have been to Chennai? Okay. On December 22nd, I wrote to Srila Prabhupada, "We are overjoyed that you agreed to speak here. I am still collecting around one life member daily and trying to have one kirtan program daily also. I had previously made the publisher of the Indian Express a life member, and now I have made the publisher editor of the Hindu a life member, as well as the biggest movie star and movie producer of the South." The movie star was Shivaji Ganeshan, and the movie producer, I think, was AVM, A.V. Mayapan Chettiar. As you suggested, I went to Higginbotham's and they took 10 sets of Krishna, 6 TLC, 6 NOD, 12 NB, 12 Isho, and 35 BTGs for cash outright. Srila Prabhupada replied, "I am most pleased especially to hear that you are distributing many books. Go on increasing books and go on increasing my pleasure." My stay in Madras was the first time I was really on my own in India, and I was trying to preach the same way I heard Srila Prabhupada preach, declaring that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead and criticizing demigod worshippers and impersonalists. There were many impersonalists in Madras and many demigod worshippers too. And gradually I began to hear from some of our friends that there was an undercurrent of protest against the way I was preaching. The Shaivites didn't like it, and the Mayavadis didn't like it either. Actually, hardly anyone liked it. I heard the criticism, and I was surprised, but I didn't really make any change. Eventually, the criticism reached such a point, however, that I began to have doubts. So many people are saying the same thing, I thought. Maybe I am doing something wrong. Even one of our best friends at whose home I had been staying echoed the comments. "You shouldn't criticize others," he said. "Just say what you want about Krishna consciousness and don't say anything negative about others. Don't criticize." He gave the example of the Gaudiya month. They don't criticize others. They have a nice temple. And every year they have a big celebration of Janmashtami. And thousands of people come, but they don't criticize like you do. They just present their own activities. Why can't you be like them? I thought about what he said, but when I asked myself whether Srila Prabhupada would really want us to be like the Gaudiya Math, I didn't think he would. So I kept preaching as I had been. But then another friend, whose brother had offered to sponsor Srila Prabhupada's program in Madras, said the same thing. All right, you worship Krishna. You can worship Krishna. But don't say that Krishna is better than Shiva or Ganesh. You do bhakti. That's all right. But don't say that bhakti yoga is better than karma yoga or jnana yoga. Wherever I went, I kept hearing it. Finally, I thought, maybe Krishna is trying to tell me something. Maybe I should listen to what they are saying. And I made a resolution. I'm just going to present Krishna consciousness. I'm not going to criticize, and I'll try not to offend people anymore. Soon thereafter, I had an appointment with a big industrialist. Srila Prabhupada had said that if we just placed his books on a person's table, the person would become a life member. So I went to the man's compound, which included his factory, office, and residence. And in his office, I showed him the books and the pictures of our activities, took out the life membership form, explained the benefits, and asked him to sign. What about Shankaracharya? He asked. He is one of the great acharyas of India. You haven't said anything about him. So I said, yes, he is one of the great acharyas of India. But you haven't said anything about him. What about him? What about his teachings? I tried to avoid getting into an argument, so I said something vague and general. But he kept pushing, probing, and finally I couldn't help myself. It all came out. I told him that actually Shankaracharya was an incarnation of Shiva, and that as such we gave him all respect. But I also told him that Shankaracharya had come with a special purpose, to present an imagined monistic interpretation of the Vedas and thus bewilder ignorant people. I even took out the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. We didn't yet have the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and read the verses from the Padma Purana and Shiva Purana about Lord Shiva taking the form of a Brahmin, preaching the false doctrine of Mayavad philosophy, which was covered Buddhism, and promoting atheism. Still, Shankara's ultimate purpose was to bring the Buddhists, who were atheists, to accept the authority of the Vedas. It was a strategy. And then Lord Chaitanya came and taught the proper understanding of the Vedas. Things became tense. The gentleman put forth a series of arguments, and I thought, I didn't want to get into an argument, but somehow I did anyway. He'll never change his position. I might as well just leave. And that was the end of the discussion. Dejected, I put away the pictures, put away the books, put away the membership form, closed my briefcase, and was ready to go. As I was about to leave, however, the gentleman said, "Before you go, I would like you to see my temple." I thought, oh no, there's going to be a Shiva Lingam, and he's going to want me to bow down, and if I don't, he's going to be even more offended. I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I could see he wasn't going to take no for an answer. So I said, all right. He escorted me to his temple room, which was quite large for a personal temple, and was all white marble. Facing us on an elevated platform at the opposite end was the altar. And much to my surprise, on the altar were large marble deities of Radha and Krishna. Boy, was I ever happy to see them. I hadn't seen any Radha Krishna deities for some time, since even the Vaishnav temples in Madras were mostly Vishnu, and the famous temple of Parthasarathi was just Krishna alone. So I was delighted. I offered my obeisances and prayers, and then I looked at the gentleman with an expression that asked what was going on. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I am a devotee of Krishna, and all my family members are devotees of Krishna. My family has worshipped Lord Krishna for many generations. I was just testing you." And you did not compromise. So I am very pleased, and I will be honored to become your life member. We went back to his office. I took out the forms. He took out his checkbook and paid the whole amount in one installment. Later, when I thought about the encounter, I was confused. I wondered if maybe I hadn't been doing the wrong thing after all, but I wasn't sure. When I got back to my room, there was a letter waiting for me from Srila Prabhupada. Receiving a letter from Prabhupada was always a great occasion. When I opened it, the words jumped off the page, quote, "The fact is, I am the only one in India who is openly criticizing not only impersonalism and demigod worship, but everything that falls short of complete surrender to Krishna." Prabhupada's words continued, "My Guru Maharaj never compromised in his preaching, nor will I, nor should any of my students. We are firmly convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all others are his part and parcel servants. We must declare boldly to the whole world that they should not foolishly dream of world peace unless they are prepared to surrender fully to Krishna as Supreme Lord." So I got my answer. That was Prabhupada's mood, his Guru Maharaj's mood and his mood. And that was the mood he wanted us to have. We don't compromise in our philosophy. In the same letter, Srila Prabhupada wrote, I have read the text of your speech delivered to the Rotary Club, and it is very thoughtfully prepared. Try to arrange many speaking engagements like that, and simply repeat what you have heard me say in lectures and in our books, and the spiritual effect will be very potent. I am very pleased with your preaching attitude. Then the letter continued, it may be that the governor of Madras will invite me as his guest. If this happens, I will come to Madras. So for the time being, you remain in Madras making members, and by my next letter, I shall let you know definitely whether I am coming. If you can arrange lectures in all the prominent halls, and if I come, you can arrange lectures in all the prominent halls, and all over the city you can advertise A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada speaks. I replied, your determination that there should be no compromise with Maya, in fact, distinguishes you from all your contemporaries. And we, as your humble servants, are trying to follow in your glorious footsteps. Although, of course, I am zillions of light years behind. I spoke to Tamal Krishna Prabhu on the phone, and he informed me of your divine grace's decision to come here for the program from February 11th to 13th. I am arranging for a nice hall with open sides in a good location to accommodate 1,500 to 3,000 guests, as well as nice accommodations for you and 10 to 12 of your disciples. I shall bring out a small souvenir book to meet travel and other expenses. I will try to make your visit as worthwhile as possible for preaching. I'm thinking to have the governor as a chief guest and to get for the other 2 nights people from industry, government, journalism, or the movies. The biggest actor here, Shivaji Ganeshan, has agreed to become a life member, and he is known as a pious and sober gentleman here. As far as collecting is concerned, by your grace, I got 6 life membership checks last week and sold 600 rupees worth of books. A week later, I was pleased to write him. I collected 3 more New Life member checks, all from the North Indian communities. I think I've already seen most of the prominent South Indians, but I recently met some North Indians. So there is a field there, as well as for cashing in on the past promises of the South Indians. We met with Governor K.K. Shah, and he agreed to be chief guest on one of the 3 nights of the function. As soon as we hear what date he chooses, we shall approach the mayor to reconfirm his acceptance and then arrange the 3rd guest. So there's more, but for the sake of time, I'll move ahead. On January 21st, Srila Prabhupada replied, I am in due receipt of your letter dated January 11th, 1972, and with great pleasure I have noted the contents. I am especially glad that you are planning a very nice 3-day program in Madras, and for that purpose, I plan to return by the first week of February from Africa. You may please approach the governor as a chief guest. I am very much gladdened that you are collecting so nicely for life membership and book sales. I think that you are very easily the best collector and one of the most responsible and best organizers of all my students in India. So I am very, very much appreciating your sincere efforts. This simple formula for success in Krishna consciousness is this sincerity. If Krishna sees that his devotee is sincere, then Krishna gives all help to bring that devotee back to him, and thus the devotee feels himself being drawn as if helpless by the force of loving service closer and closer to the lotus feet of Krishna. Now try to arrange chief guests like the governor and others, and make the program very nice and advertise it nicely. Then I shall really enjoy to come there and see what you have done. I had been thinking that Srila Prabhupada was watching me all the time when I was in Madras. And I kept asking myself, what would Prabhupada want me to do? I didn't feel that I was doing anything special, but his frequent letters were very encouraging. One day, Achyutananda had an argument with our host, a so-called Orthodox Hindu who believed that you couldn't be a Brahmin unless you were born in a Brahmin family. The man conceded, you can be a Vaishnav, and a Vaishnav is more than a Brahmin, but you are not a Brahmin. To become a Brahmin, you have to take birth as a Brahmin in your next life. Achyutananda explained, one takes birth in a particular family according to his karma, his previous pious and sinful activities. And thus someone who is engaged in sinful activities may not take birth in a Brahmin family. But by chanting the holy name of the Lord, you can immediately eradicate all sinful reactions without a change of body. In conclusion, he questioned our host, which is stronger, the holy name or sin? And the man had to admit that the holy name was stronger. By taking shelter of the holy name, under the guidance of a pure devotee, one could be freed from sinful actions and reactions without changing one's body, and thus transcend the position of even an ordinary Brahmin. One could become more than a Brahmin and also a Brahmin. While in Madras, Achyutananda Bhavananda and I got to speaking about how things were going in India and how they could be better organized. And somehow, although I did not have as much regular interaction with Srila Prabhupada as the others, they wanted me to write him a letter, and so I did. Quote, Achyutananda Maharaj, Bhavananda Prabhu and myself have met and collectively decided upon a plan based on our limited and imperfect senses and limited knowledge of what has happened in India since we left Delhi, I wrote, and we humbly put forth these ideas for your divine grace. Although some of our ideas may have been impractical or inappropriate, Srila Prabhupada praised our efforts. Quote, I am very encouraged by your thoughtful plan to organize very nicely all our men in India. I can understand that you are very eligible to be among the biggest leaders, so I have all confidence in your Madras programs. There appears to be some feeling of dissatisfaction with the way things are being managed in India. So I have simply said that if you all get me at least 2 life members daily in India, then I shall do the rest. So I am pleased to hear from you that you are making many life members there. That is the proof of our preaching strength. Wherever there is preaching strength, there is also success. No matter it may be Pandal show or making members or traveling Sankirtan party or whatever it may be, just maintain our strong position of purity of routine work and preach and distribute literature. That's all. So far as our program for India, we are at present trying seriously for a nice house in the aristocratic section of Bombay. Otherwise, when funds are there, we shall construct very nice centers in Vrindavan and Mayapur. That's all. Let many foreign students and disciples come to India for staying with us in these places. In the same letter, Prabhupada informed us of his plan for the first International Mayapur Festival, emphasized the distribution of his books, and gave us hope that he would come to Madras. Quote, as for the Pandal program in Madras, that is all right what you have suggested. You are doing very, very nicely in Madras, and except for you, I think there is hardly any devotee so hardworking and with such good ability to persuade men to help. On one Ekadasi, Bhavananda and I were in the mood to go out and preach. Achyutananda said, no, it's Ekadasi. We should not go out. It is inauspicious. And besides that, it looks like rain. But we thought, he is so attached to external rules and regulations. We have the real spirit of preaching. We're not going to worry about Ekadasi or some rain. So we went out. At first there was only a slight drizzle, but within minutes the sky opened up and the rain poured down. And it kept getting heavier and heavier. And there wasn't much of a drainage system, just an open ditch 2 or 3 feet deep, lined with concrete. So as the storm continued, the channel started filling with water. Pretty soon, we couldn't distinguish between the water on the street and the water in the ditch and the water in the fields beyond. Through it all, Bhavananda and I walked along blissfully, drenched in water, but inspired in our service to our Guru Maharaj. Then Bhavananda fell into the ditch, up to his waist in sewage water, until I gave him a hand and he climbed out, dripping. When I related the incident to Srila Prabhupada, I praised Bhavananda that he had equal vision and didn't distinguish between high and low. I quoted Bhagavad Gita 5:18. Vidya Vinay Sampane Brahmane Gavyastini Shuni Chaiva Svapake Cha Pandita Samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Yes, Prabhupada replied, you have theoretical knowledge, but Bhavananda has realized knowledge. So he is more advanced. So on February 11th, the Hindu newspaper announced Srila Prabhupada's forthcoming visit to Madras. It was a very nice report, but again, to save time, I'll proceed. Srila Prabhupada arrived by train, and I, along with a large group of local well-wishers, met him at Madras Central. Some hours later, he sat in the back seat of a flower-decorated 1959 black Chevrolet Impala convertible for a grand parade down Mount Road, the main street in the city, led by a decorated elephant and marching band, followed by devotees doing kirtan, and ending up at the city's civic center, where he addressed a gathering of admirers. The Hindu reported on Prabhupada's arrival, and then I quote, very nice account published in the Hindu. The following day, I arranged a meeting between Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chakravarti Rajgopalacharya, Rajaji, the first chief executive of independent India and the author of a well-known English translation of the Mahabharata and other books on Indian philosophy. Rajaji was now 93 and had been the last Governor General of India and the first Indian-born Governor General, as all previous holders of the post had been British. He had also served as leader of the Indian National Congress, Premier of the Madras Presidency, Governor of West Bengal, Minister of Home Affairs of the Indian Union, and Chief Minister of Madras State. He was one of India's elder statesmen, deeply religious, and a father of the nation. And when Vice President Richard Nixon from America visited him in 1954, Nixon called him, quote, the wisest man in India, end quote. Now I quote the conversation. Rajaji, to Srila Prabhupada, referring to Madhuvisa, who is the chief of your group, you or he? Prabhupada, laughing, as you like. Rajaji, he's holding a big stick, danda. He's holding a big stick, so I'm asking. Madhuvisa, Prabhupada is the chief. He has given me the stick. And there's a discussion of sannyas and Tridanti sannyas. So then Prabhupada Rajaji said, you belong to West Bengal, I think. Prabhupada, yes. My birthplace is Calcutta. Rajaji, great and famous place, looked after Prabhupada, where you were governor. Rajaji, looked after very badly, very badly. Prabhupada, Lalaji was governor in West Bengal. Rajaji, yes, I was called governor there for some time. I liked the place. They were all very kind. They had settled down after a lot of rioting and all that. They were very good to me. They looked upon me as an impartial man, which is a very great compliment in our country. Now you have undertaken a very great task. I am not competent to discuss or comment on it. Prabhupada, no. I think you are the best man to comment on it. I was thinking of taking up this task long, long ago. I wrote one letter to Mahatma Gandhi that you have got influence all over the world and you are acknowledged as a man of spiritual understanding. Now you have got Swaraj, independence. You better retire and take up this preaching of Bhagavad Gita all over the world. Sometimes I also requested Dr. Radhakrishnan when he was vice president. There's a lot of nice discussion, but I'll come to the end. Rajaji. The question which I put to Giriraj was whether it would not have been better if you work from inside rather than make yourself a separate organization. Once you form a separate organization, it becomes like a person who is born. He gets his attachment, his ego, his everything. So the separate organization becomes an ego. There is competition among organizations. So all the egoistic weaknesses apply to organizations also. Prabhupada. Oh no, there's a little more from Rajaji. There is competition among organizations. So all the egoistic weaknesses apply to organizations also. Therefore, I was wondering whether it would not, if you had convinced that your mission was to spread the Gita Acharya's teachings as to how to act with detachment and with faith in the grace of God, where you go wrong, could not have been better done without making yourself separate. Prabhupada, no. The thing is, when there is detachment, there must be another attachment. Rajaji, yes, to God. Prabhupada, yes, that is required. Rajaji, if you wish to live with detachment, attach yourself to God. Prabhupada, yes. Param dristva nivartante. After getting good attachment, you give up the inferior attachment. Rajaji, right, that will be better. The attachment should be to God. Prabhupada, Krishna. Rajaji, Krishna. Govinda, as I will call him. Attachment should be to Govinda, not to an organization. And listen to Srila Prabhupada's answer. Prabhupada, Govinda is absolute. Govinda and Govinda's organization are the same. Govinda is absolute. And then the meeting concluded very nicely with Srila Prabhupada speaking about Krishna's absolute nature and the holy name. I had also arranged for Srila Prabhupada to meet with Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, who had served as the second president of India from 1962 to 1967, and as the first vice president of India from 1952 to 1962, and who had written several books and translations of Vedic philosophy from the impersonal point of view. Srila Prabhupada had previously criticized Dr. Radhakrishna's translation and commentary on the Gita, which had declared that although Krishna says surrender unto him, we don't actually have to surrender unto the person Krishna, but, quote, to the unborn, beginningless, eternal, who speaks through Krishna. And then I give an account of how Srila Prabhupada had criticized Dr. Radhakrishnan in different articles and talks. So we went to meet him. Now, Dr. Radhakrishnan was a decrepit old man. Withered and bent over, he shuffled in with the assistance of a nurse, was lowered into a chair, and, Vishakadasi remembered, sat near Prabhupada wordless. With Dr. Radhakrishnan silent and trembling next to him, Prabhupada leaned forward and gently addressed the doctor, explaining how Prabhupada himself was traveling widely to present the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is throughout the world, and was receiving a good reception. People were hankering for this knowledge, taking it seriously, and becoming devotees of Krishna, Prabhupada said. Prabhupada quoted Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise, who know this perfectly, engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Krishna, Prabhupada went on, is a person. Not a person like us, for we are embodied souls. Krishna's form is all spiritual. We could personally relate to him by serving him with love and devotion. The old scholar sometimes responded with a glimmer in his eyes, but he could only make incoherent sounds, and after a few minutes his nurse interrupted. The doctor is tired now and must rest. He thanks you for kindly visiting him. And on his nurse's arm, Dr. Radhakrishnan hobbled back to his room. Later, Shamsundar wrote, later, Prabhupada said, suppose I have written one book, Bhagavad Gita. So I have got some intention. So why should you interpret my intention with your intention? but it has become popular. Now you are taking advantage of my book and expressing your views. How much cheating! How much cheater you are. Therefore he is suffering, Dr. Radhakrishnan. He has lost his brain, void, simply sitting down like this. He cannot ask whether he is hungry or not. His daughter is always attending, giving him some food. Then he is eating. Otherwise, he does not speak. He has lost everything. He has mentioned Bhagavad Gita as a mental speculation in his Indian religion book. So he is such a great offender, he must suffer. But it is good for him. Because he is a gentleman, therefore his offenses are being compensated in this lifetime. The meeting seemed to affect Prabhupada, and for days after he would soberly mention how the old Mayavadi scholar was living almost like a vegetable, just sitting in his house for years on end, paralyzed, spoon-fed by his daughter. In his room one day, Srila Prabhupada gave me a brief description of each of his books in just 1 or 2 sentences. Concluding, he said, quote, "The nectar of devotion is real nectar," end quote. End quote. The Krishna book is pastimes and philosophy woven together in such a way that while reading it, you don't even realize that you're getting the philosophy. So, there's still quite a bit more, and I'm concerned about the time. I think I'll have to come back and continue the reading some other time, because we haven't gotten to Srila Prabhupada's talks, and the talks were really good, and they were also reported in the Hindu. But I will just skip to one event that took place at the end with the Chief Justice of Madras. Okay. Srila Prabhupada met with many of Madras's most important citizens. They were leaders, he told them, and if they became Krishna conscious, others would follow their example. For one program, the Chief Justice of Madras invited Prabhupada to speak before a large gathering of high court judges, advocates, and other leading citizens. Prabhupada appealed to the audience to follow the examples of Sri Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami, who in the 16th century had given up their exalted posts as Prime Minister and Finance Minister in the Bengal government to help Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spread the Krishna consciousness movement. After the program, the Chief Justice invited Prabhupada to dinner at his home, and there he disclosed that he wanted to join Prabhupada's movement as soon as possible. Prabhupada began to glorify the 6 Goswamis, but this time in a different way. He explained how after going to Vrindavan, the Goswamis were always longing for Lord Krishna and his eternal consort, Srimati Radharani. Quote, they never said, now I have seen God, now I am satisfied. No. Rather, they were saying, where is Radha? Where is Krishna? The Chief Justice presented Prabhupada a sandalwood garland and a small statue of Krishna to demonstrate the ecstasy the Goswamis had felt in separation from Krishna. Prabhupada held the statue in front of little Saraswati. Saraswati was the daughter of Shamsundar Prabhu and Malati Mataji, and she was maybe 3 years old. Prabhupada held the statue of Krishna in front of little Saraswati and said, who is this Saraswati? Krishna, Saraswati exclaimed. Then he slowly moved the statue around to the side, hid it behind his back, and said, Saraswati, where is Krishna? When Saraswati realized that Krishna was gone, a startled look of anxiety crossed her face. Her eyes darted in all directions. Where is Krishna? But Krishna was nowhere to be found. She looked to the devotees, checking their hands and around behind their backs, searching everywhere. But Krishna was nowhere to be found. Then a devotee said, Saraswati, who has Krishna? And Saraswati opened her eyes wide with realization, exclaimed, Prabhupada has Krishna. And rushed to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. Prabhupada has Krishna. And he brought the statue from behind his back and presented it to her. As the rest of us, as the rest of us observed the touching exchange, we gained a clear realization that Srila Prabhupada held Krishna in his hand and that he could deliver Krishna to us when he felt that our desire for Krishna, like Saraswati's, was sufficiently intense. He knew our inner feelings, knew each of our hearts. Although Saraswati was only 3 years old, Prabhupada knew just how to engage her in Krishna consciousness. And we were able to witness him as the supreme preacher, engaging everything and everybody and spreading Krishna consciousness. And then to conclude this section, really jumping over a lot. Towards the end of Srila Prabhupada's stay in Madras, A wealthy householder invited him to his home for the consecration of his temple. The host had invited many dignitaries, and although the temple was a good size for a home, it wasn't large enough to accommodate Prabhupada's disciples along with everyone else. So Prabhupada and the other guests went into the temple, and we disciples looked in from outside. As part of the ceremony, the host distributed flower petals to the guests to offer to the deity of Lord Shiva, a Shiva lingam. And we were all interested to see how Prabhupada would deal with the situation. At the appropriate moment, all the participants threw their flower petals on the deity of Shiva, except for Prabhupada. He threw his in the corner. We thought, he is the Acharya, we have to learn from him. After the ceremony, when the other invitees came out, we went into the temple and looked in the corner. And there we saw a small deity of Krishna. Prabhupada had offered his flowers to Krishna. On February 20th, Srila Prabhupada wrote to his disciple Satadanya, "We have just had a very successful program in Madras with many prominent men, including the Chief Justice of Madras, taking an active part in the Sankirtan movement." Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So now, my dear devotees, if any of you have any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble wishes. I was having 3 questions to you in a single question. Like I see that you are excellent in book distribution, you are excellent in fundraising, and you are excellent in preaching. You are having 3 hats simultaneously. Which is very favorite to you? Which was fundraising or book distribution or preaching?
What was what?
Book distribution and preaching. What was your favorite?
What was my?
Service to Prabhupada.
None of the above. Writing. Srila Prabhupada wanted me to write. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for a very, very enlightening talk. Maharaj, my question is regarding the Chief Justice example that you mentioned, that he wanted to surrender to Prabhupada. So Maharaj, my question is that in general, if a big shot or somebody who is in a very high post, that person wants to surrender, that could be in 2 kinds. One is obviously internal. 2 kind of surrender can be there. One is internal, where the obvious processes of bhakti like association, chanting, books and diet, all that person will follow internally. But Maharaj, my question is, externally would there be a change in terms of the occupational, whatever profession or something that person is doing, like this Chief Justice example, how would he have externally contributed to the movement?
Well, the Chief Justice actually wanted to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and he would have remained in his position, but he would have been a disciple of Srila Prabhupada's. But unfortunately, after we all left Madras, we couldn't really follow up with him. But he did some very good service, when Srila Prabhupada was in Madras. And he wanted to take initiation. And Prabhupada was willing. He was open to the idea.
So Maharaj, basically like in today's context, if somebody is in a big position and is also an initiated person, so in the external affairs, can that person contribute using that profession or occupation, that somebody is a big doctor or a big lawyer, how can they contribute to this ISKCON movement in their professional capability?
They can continue in their professions and to whatever extent possible, they can use their professional services to serve ISKCON.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for your amazing Prabhupada Leela. It seemed like every statement of the intent of this book, of course, is to glorify Srila Prabhupada more and more. And I think that's something which uplifts and inspires so many devotees who never had Prabhupada's physical association. Maharaj, I had a question about, if I remember correctly, you can of course correct me if I'm wrong, I guess it was the governor also who couldn't leave tea. And Prabhupada said we could make an exception. Was it in Chennai? I think it was.
Yes. It was in relation to the Chief Justice.
Oh, it was in relation.
In relation to the Chief Justice. He couldn't completely give up drinking tea. And Srila Prabhupada said exactly what you quoted, that for a very big man, we can make a little exception. Yeah.
My other question is, Maharaj, in the same context was when Prabhupada was being pushed by, I guess it was the same personality, to speak on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada kind of very humbly insisted to talk on that. So as a preacher, you have seen these various phases of Prabhupada, where sometimes he would become like a lion and sometimes he would take a very humble position. Would you kind of share some of, you know?
Yeah, for the sake of time, I didn't read that part, but I'll read it now because then the others will know to what you're referring. So, for much of Prabhupada's stay in Madras, he was hosted by one Mr. Balu. One day, Mr. Balu and his wife asked Srila Prabhupada to speak to them about Radha and Krishna's Rasa Leela. Prabhupada replied that the Rasa Leela was the most exalted spiritual topic, and so was meant only for liberated souls. He gestured toward Balu's photos of his family members on the wall, indicating Balu's material attachments, and explained that only one completely free of material desires was fit to hear the Rasa Leela. No, Swamiji, Mr. Balu insisted. My wife and I are requesting you, please recite Rasa Leela. Again, Prabhupada cited the Rasa Leela dance's exalted position, repeating that only one who is completely free of all material attachments to wife, family, home, and money was fit to hear of Krishna's Rasa dance. But Mr. Balu just folded his hands and requested, Swamiji, my wife and I appeal to you. Please recite Rasa Leela. Finally, Prabhupada replied, well, you may be fit to hear Rasa Leela, but I do not feel that I am qualified to speak it. So kindly ask someone else. Any other questions or comments? Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for a nice, wonderful class about Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, as Prabhupada sent you to Madras, it was new place and a popular place where there is a lot of criticism to Krishna consciousness. So initially you might have had a opposition, and at that time so much failure was there at side that people were not initially very favorable to Krishna consciousness. So what was your thought process at that time?
What was my
Thought process, what you were thinking when initially people were against Krishna consciousness?
Oh. Well, I wasn't really there to please people. I was there to serve Srila Prabhupada and preach as I had heard him preach. And some people liked and some people didn't like. But that's always the case when we preach. Not everyone will like our message, but some will like our message. And we continue with our efforts. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of Jatayu. You know Jatayu, the bird from the pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. So after Ravana abducted Sita and was taking her to Lanka, Jatayu saw him and fought with him to try to free Sita from his clutches. But because Jatayu was quite old by then, and of course Ravana was very powerful, he was defeated by Ravana. Meanwhile, Lord Chaitanya came upon Jatayu while he was looking for Sita, and Jatayu explained what had happened. And then it's described that Lord Chaitanya performed the funeral rites for Jatayu, just like a son would do for his father. So the fact that he was unsuccessful externally did not diminish Lord Rama's appreciation for him at all. And Srila Prabhupada told the story in Mayapur to us to make the point that even if externally we're not successful, but if we make our best effort, Krishna will be pleased. So that's what we do as preachers. We make our best effort. Yeah. Nice.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for reading this chapter on Madras from your book. Very wonderful, and a lot of instances, very historical instances you narrated, and they're there in this part of your visit to Chennai. Now it's Chennai, that time it was Madras. Maharaj, my question was related to this letter what Srila Prabhupada wrote about non-compromising preaching. So, what has happened in this day and age now with the spread of internet and social media, what we
Wait, in this day and age of,
social media and internet.
oh, social media.
Yeah. So along with our preaching, if there is criticism of other people or philosophies, then it leads to kind of controversy. So how do you advise that we maintain the same mood in this time? Because those days it was more about newspapers and the things were more localized. And ISKCON was also not like, at that level of establishment what it is now. So now even if one ISKCON preacher speaks insensitively about, about another person or maybe another philosophy, then that becomes very sensational and then it may lead to a lot of controversy about that because at least that's my understanding, there's a lot of change in the times from that time to this time. So how do we maintain our loyalty and non-compromising nature to Srila Prabhupada at the same time, not leading to some kind of controversial stuff when we speak strongly?
Well, social media would probably not be the best platform for criticizing. Sometimes if someone puts something on Facebook, for example, that needs to be discussed properly, and I feel that Facebook would not be the proper platform, I give them my email address, or I take their email address and suggest that we discuss this outside of Facebook. And sometimes I say I don't think Facebook is the proper platform for such discussions. And then, one-on-one or whatever, we can speak frankly, and we can also judge the person's reaction and see what we have to say to help the person to make further progress. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you told that on the day of Ekadashi, Achyutanand Swami Maharaj told not to go for preaching, but still both of you went for preaching and Bhavanand Prabhu fell into ditch. So what is your advice for us, Maharaj?
Well, I would say that if someone wants to stay back and, chant and hear more, that's all right. And if someone wants to go out and preach and serve the mission and spread the message, I think that's all right too. I mean, that was a special convergence of Ekadasi and heavy rain and poor drainage. So, yeah. So I think both are good. It would really be up to the individual or the demands of the circumstances. Yeah. Yes? You need the microphone back there.
Maharaj, it is really a great fortune to learn from you your direct about your direct service to Srila Prabhupada. One statement that you quoted from his conversation with Rajaji, that Rajaji was against carving out a separate organizational identity because he was skeptical that organizational identity may take precedence over the service to Krishna. It may get so solidified that he called it ego. So, Prabhupada would have said many things about organization, how to protect organization from, like he said here, that Govinda is absolute and Govinda is same as Govinda's organization. So he would have made many statements he would have made about organization as an entity. How to learn about his views about organization in a consolidated manner? They would be all scattered all over the place. The reason why I am asking is I have been asked recently to do a small service for organization development committee, assisting them in something. So I want to learn about Prabhupada's views about organization. What is the best way to go about learning his views on organization?
Well, the word organization can have two meanings. One is being organized, and the other is an organization, an entity. So, are you being asked to write about organization in the sense of how to be organized, or in the sense of ISKCON as an organization?
ISKCON as an organization.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a compilation by the Bhaktivedanta Archives called Srila Prabhupada Shikshamrita, in which they have collected excerpts from Srila Prabhupada on different topics, on a variety of topics. And I would think if you look in that book under ISKCON, you'll find a lot. They, as you say, they're scattered here and there, but in this book, they've been brought together. And I'm quite sure you'll find a lot there. It's a very useful reference source.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. I'm going to have to take a break for about 5 minutes. So, yeah. Chant and be happy.
Hare Krishna. The devotees are requested to stay back for getting Maharaj's signature on his books. Maharaj will come back immediately after 2 minutes. So let us thank His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj for giving such nice, wonderful class by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare हरे कृष्णा. बहुत ही सुंदर एक वीडियो आपके लिए वेटिंग कर रहे हैं, तो आप थोड़ी देर के लिए वेट कीजिएगा. आज बालोत्सव होगा. ये एज ग्रुप 5 से लेकर 15 तक के लिए 4 बजे से 8 बजे तक एनवीसीसी मंदिर में ही होगा. और ये बालोत्सव मेगा इवेंट, किड्स का इवेंट है. बच्चों से और of the children, by the children, for the children. Hare Krishna. So at NVCC 28, 29, ये सैटरडे और संडे दो दिन, और श्री राधा कुंज बिहारी में मंडे को 30 तारीख को हिज ग्रेस चैतन्य चरण प्रभु श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास देंगे. हरि वो. और हिज ग्रेस भूरिजन प्रभु द्वारा 31 जनवरी ट्यूसडे और 1 फरवरी वेडनेसडे 7 बजे से लेकर 9 बजे तक जपा सेमिनार होगा. हरि वो. ब्रह्मोत्सव ये एनवीसीसी मंदिर में होने वाला है. 5 दिन का ये फेस्टिवल है और 1 फरवरी से लेकर 5 फरवरी तक इसका जो बारे में आप ज़्यादा जानकारी जानना चाहते हैं तो अनाउंसमेंट ये पैम्पलेट लगाया हुआ है नोटिस बोर्ड में, आप उसको देख सकते हैं. और अभी एक छोटा सा वीडियो है, जब तक महाराज आएंगे तब तक. हरे कृष्ण. हरे कृष्ण. एक मिनट. ये है इस्कॉन एनवीसीसी और राधा कुंज बिहारी मंदिर का इस साल का जो मैराथन के बारे में, हालांकि डिवोटीज बहुत कम है, तो कितने लोग ये मंदिर का जो स्कोर है जानते हैं? हाथ उठाइए. कितने लोग जानना चाहते हैं? हाथ उठाइए. सब लोग. ठीक है, ये 2 मिनट वीडियो आपके लिए. हरे कृष्ण.
For the pleasure of the Lordship, Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra, Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, Shri Prabhupada and all the assembled Vaishnavas, the grand total of the entire marathon of 2022, their scores are center-wise: ISKCON Pune, Uttam Nagar Center, 200 small books and 3,500 Mahabig books. Third Preaching Center, 477 small books, 5 medium books, 15 big books, 26,826 Mahabig books, which includes 2 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, 10 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, and 10 Lilamrita sets. ISKCON Pune Camp Temple, 1,499 BTG magazines, 17,126 small books, 1,465 medium books, 785 big books, 1,82,275 Mahabig books, which includes 1,081 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, 319 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, and 98 Lilamrita sets. ISKCON Pune NVCC Temple, 39 BTG subscriptions, 3,545 BTG magazines, 42,414 small books, 3,496 medium books, 4,763 big books, 2,78,074 Mahabig books, which includes 1,105 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, 135 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, and 74 Lilamrita sets. So the total score of Marathon 2022 for ISKCON Pune is 39 BTG subscriptions, 5,044 BTG magazines, 60,217 small books, 4,986 medium books, 5,563 big books, and 4,90,675 Mahabig books, which includes 2,188 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, 464 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, and 182 Lilamrita sets. So the grand yearly total book distribution score of ISKCON Pune for the year 2022, whole year score: 498 BTG subscriptions, 25,303 BTG magazines, 1,27,578 small books, 9,127 medium books, 11,820 big books, and 5,92,288 Mahabig books, which includes 3,056 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, 951 Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita sets, and 268 Lilamrita sets, thereby making the grand yearly total of 12,37,579.40 book points. Haribo. So that is equivalent to 6,18,790 Mahabig books. Haribo. Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution Marathon ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Are there were questions when I left. Are there still questions now? Are there questions or comments? Okay, we'll take those and then we'll
Hare
sign
Krishna.
books. No, not him.
Just Maharaj, one question.
Someone new.
While preaching, Maharaj, sometime generally I'm engaged in college preaching, or sometimes direct preaching also. So sometimes it happens that some people are favorable and some are non-favorable, and there is always doubt. Like if there is always a confusion or a kind of worry that non-favorable people or those who are little opposing, they will affect those who are favorable. Especially it happens in college preaching that if some boy becomes little anti to our preaching or little anti to our philosophy, then it's a big fear. Then there is a big tension how to protect the one who is favorable or who is becoming Krishna conscious. And as a neophyte preacher, kind of, I'd sometime tended to call favorable one and tell him that you should not listen to others, or you should be aware or little bit more uh, more aware that some people are there who are little anti or who will be just telling you something else or little different. Then what is the correct way of protecting the one who is favorable? That is my question.
Well, I think what you described sounds fine. That you can say that you have to do what you know is right, and don't be confused or distracted by people who give contrary advice.
Sometimes it appears to be defending before the problem has occurred. So that also is little awkward in one sense. Like we are calling the person and defending ourselves only. So how to understand this?
But I think it's better to warn them before it happens rather than after it happens. Because after it happens, it might be too late. They might already be influenced by the negative talks. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When you are cultivating Radha Krishna, he was arguing with you for some time about Shiva, and you are continually supporting Krishna. Later on, he revealed Radha Krishna deities to you. What?
Huh? No,
Ram Krishna, sir.
You're mixing up two things. Mr. Ramakrishna and I were arguing whether Shiva is supreme or Krishna is supreme. And then I brought him to meet Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada didn't get into that controversy. He just spoke about the difference between puja and bhakti. That was one thing. And the discussion with the man who had the Radha Krishna deities, that was something else.
Sorry, I was little.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Just little.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
regarding the Radha Krishna deities, what was your moment of you felt you're victorious, when you felt very victorious, that you are firmly fixed to Krishna consciousness? When that person, gentleman, revealed the Radha Krishna deities after argument, I want to test you.
Yeah.
You felt you are very victorious or very humbled that you are in the right process of Krishna consciousness. That was early days of your Krishna consciousness. What was your feeling that time?
Well, I was happy. I was happy that he was a devotee of Radha and Krishna. I was happy that I passed the test. I was happy that he became a life member. Yeah, I was happy.
Maharaj, thank you very much for such enlivening pastimes you shared. So, my question is, Maharaj, that in my life, when I see that when I've done very proper sadhana, like reading of Srila Prabhupada books and chant properly and everything, and then we go out for preaching, so the consciousness is quite brisk, and we can actually consciously think of pleasing our superiors, Srila Prabhupada. It becomes more easy. But as in I understand, those days things were like so many services, there are a lot of need, and you're all so much extending yourselves for pleasing Srila Prabhupada. So I just wanted to know that how in those days, like you were also telling, sometimes you not even get time to read sometimes, it will happen sometimes. But because you were serving person Bhagavad, Prabhupada said that he encouraged you like that. So I just wanted to know from you, Maharaj, that in such situations, when we may not be able to do that much sadhana and all that aspect, which may help us from that perspective to become that conscious of being pleasing our superiors and remain intact. In those situations, what way we should, what is your advice that we can still remain focused and not being affected by material energy and, still be having that consciousness? Like what could be your, what is your advice in such situations? Though the principle wise it is correct, Maharaj, you said that if you serve person Bhagavad, then it becomes easy. But if you have some advice on that, more elaborate.
That was about reading. But as far as chanting, we have to chant our rounds. And I found myself that unless I chanted 12 rounds, I didn't feel that I was ready to face the day of service. And also, I would be in anxiety about when I would finish my rounds. So that was my rule for myself, not to do anything until I chanted 12 rounds. And what you said is true about sadhana. And I stayed at Vaisheshika Prabhu's home for a few days. And he was working on his book, which has now come out, called Our Family Business. And he said that one of the themes of his book was that the enthusiasm to preach and distribute books should come from the overflow of the ecstasy we feel from our spiritual practices. So yes, having strong sadhana will definitely help you with your preaching and book distribution. So yeah, we want to have strong sadhana.
So, Maharaj, in such situation, should we also be very much conscious to keep our sadhana standards and time? Like say marathon time is there. So that time we should kind of also being very consciously putting those hours for our sadhana, and then we can be going on for book distribution and all that. Or sometimes there may be greed, as a team may feel that maybe we can do more and we can be little more less in that. Sometimes that kind of thing also comes up from the team members. So your advice on that?
I would say that you have to do your rounds, but you can, you can set aside the reading. That was what, it was in relation to the reading that Srila Prabhupada said, by serving the person Bhagavat or reading the book Bhagavat, you get the same result. So, of course, it's good to read a little every day, just a verse in a purport or a page or two. But yeah, doing service in the marathon, yeah, you get empowered. Yeah, give yourself fully to the service, and yeah, you'll be blessed. Yes, somebody wants the mic?
Just last thing.
Oh,
Generally, I tend to like put a conscious effort to put that sadhana time, and that's how it goes well in my situation. I feel that. So that we could all, and then we try to put our full efforts in marathon, that whatever number of hours like that, we try to do that.
you should do what works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. In one letter, I think Srila Prabhupada wrote that that book distribution is the highest. But even higher than book distribution is saving yourself first.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I offer my most respectful obeisances unto your lotus.
Sorry?
I offer my most respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. Maharaj, this is regarding the preaching in uncompromising way. Just like you said, Maharaj, that when you used to preach to the Mayavadis and the demigod worshippers, you used to preach in uncompromisingly. So my question is that when among the family members, there are many demigod worshippers. They do not believe the supremacy of the Lord Shri Krishna. So sometimes while preaching to them, I generally tend to make some mistakes on basis on that the relationship is spoiled. So what considerations should I make while preaching to them? Should I focus more on the relationship or should I focus more on the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada?
Yeah, once I visited a family of Indian origin, but living in America. The lady was my disciple, is my disciple, and her mother was visiting from India. And her mother was very nice, very pious, and the daughter and even the son-in-law really appreciated her. But at a certain point, she started to speak Mayavad philosophy. And I thought, if I get into an argument with her, it's going to spoil the whole mood. And I didn't want to do that. So I thought a better approach would be to give her one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And I thought, instead of my saying fool and rascal, Srila Prabhupada will say fool and rascal, and the purpose would be served. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm a student. and I'm standard 12. I got my JEE entrance exam day after tomorrow, so I'm really scared about the examination. I'm here for my mental peace. So can you suggest me something that I can do right now? Um, I don't know if I start my exam and my mind blanks out. I can focus on exam. Can you suggest me something?
Do you have japa mala?
Yes, I do.
Huh?
Yes.
You do, okay. And do you chant some minimum number of rounds every day?
Not every day, but weekly.
Well, the authorities recommend you should have some minimum number you chant every day, whatever it is.
Okay.
And then if by chance you miss on one day, then you make up the ones you missed on the next day. So what do you think an appropriate, feasible minimum for you would be?
One round.
One.
Yeah.
Okay, so do one every day, and by chance, if you miss your one, then you make it up.
Okay.
Okay. And then for your exam, well, I know you have to prepare for your exam, but if you, yeah, maybe take shelter of the holy name, and you'll feel more peaceful and more confident. You'll feel that Krishna is with you. Suppose you do well on your exam, then what comes next?
The happiness I will see on my parents' face is all can.
Can you?
I'll achieve my dream college. It will give me more peace.
Okay. And what will you study in college?
Engineering, BTech.
Okay. Anyway, I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. And especially the enchanting pastimes which we have not heard. So new pastimes you are telling, so that was also very interesting. Regarding, like I'm a new sadhak of Maharaj, so I'm trying my best in bhakti. So there are many attachments, attractions. So any attachment which was difficult for you, no offense, but any attachment which was difficult for you to give up and then you made it out, how did you make it out from that attachment? So that I would like to know for my inspiration. Like something which you were very attached to, and then how did you come out from it, if anything was there? So that for my own inspiration, I wanted to ask.
Well, I wasn't very attached to anything. I mean, I grew up in a very wealthy suburb of Chicago, and I could see the parents, my parents and the parents of my friends, they were not happy, although they had a lot of wealth. And so I could understand that having wealth and material things would not make someone happy. So I was already quite detached from all those things, and I wanted perfect happiness, but I understood that perfect happiness could not be achieved materially, but only spiritually. And then I understood that to progress spiritually, I needed a guru. And then my quest became to find my guru. And then eventually I did meet Srila Prabhupada, and then I dedicated whatever I had to him. Like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Manasadeha Geha Yo Kichu Mor Arpila Pare Nanda Kishore. Whatever I have, I surrender to Krishna. And for us, through Srila Prabhupada. And I don't really think of any attachment. I mean, maybe I shaved up a little early, because after I shaved up, I was sort of missing my hair, but I got used to it.
So any suggestions how to try to get out of attachments or something which you are very addicted to or very attracted to?
Well, in general, our process is to engage everything in Krishna's service. So I don't know what attachment you mean, but you could dovetail it with Krishna's service. Like yesterday I met a devotee who liked acting, and so now he's dovetailing it by, playing parts in drama festivals. So it's sort of a saying when I joined, whatever you like to do, do it for Krishna. So, yeah, unless it's like a really bad habit, but otherwise just try to dovetail it in devotional service.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you can announce about the books.
Maharaj will be here for some more time to sign the books. As we announced, Maharaj has written many wonderful books, and this is his favorite service to Srila Prabhupada, as he just told. So this is a wonderful book. I'll build you a temple, the Juhu story. And the others, Life's Final Exam, Watering the Seed. Watering the Seed is there in Hindi also now. Beej ka Season. So जो भक्त हिंदी में महाराज जी का बुक पढ़ना चाहते हैं, बीज का सीजन, वो ले सकते हैं। उसमें महाराज जी बताते हैं कैसे उनकी प्रभुपाद जी से भेंट हुई, कैसे उन्होंने प्रभुपाद जी की अलग अलग स्थानों पर सेवाएं की हैं। तो आप ये बुक लेकर के महाराज व्यक्तिगत रूप से उसके ऊपर हस्ताक्षर करेंगे, आपके लिए एक संदेश लिखेंगे, तो आप इसका लाभ लीजिए महाराज के व्यक्तिगत संघ का और व्यक्तिगत संदेश का। हरे कृष्ण।